Is this working? Right, hello, everybody. Yes, slightly controversial. Lighting is art, and you don't need guidelines. We've been going for 18, 20 years now as a design consultancy. We've done a lot of projects. We're up to about project 750. We've done about 150 hotels, and we've encountered a lot of guidelines and a lot of regulations from a lot of different people and organizations, and almost all of them are crap, and you do not need them. Firstly, they change all the time. This is a few ones I picked up. I like the bottom one. In America, they used to recommend 140 lux for chalkboards, and now they recommend 1400. I don't think we've evolved that much since the 30s. Fashion sense, maybe. They change all the time. They are completely different. They randomly go up and down. Different countries have different ones. Different countries recommend different things. They can't all be right. I don't believe any of them. They are apparently random. Doing a bit of research on this, and I looked up CIBSE. This is the one organization. These are all from the CIBSE guideline. Supermarket, 750 lux. Hypermarket, 1,000 lux. That's a third more, and therefore a third more expensive, and a third more power, and a third more fittings, and a third more lux. And I don't think all the stuff they sell is really tiny in hypermarkets, and you need a lot of light more. Warehouse, you know, it's not a big warehouse, 200 lux. DIY store looks pretty like a warehouse to me. Big shelves full of stuff. Apparently, you need 5 times as much light. At the back of the DIY store, certainly the one near my house, because I'm middle-aged, go hang out on Sundays, is a garden centre. And you only need half the light there at the back of the DIY store, but still 2.5 times as much you need in the identical warehouse. I did a bit of research into how these were all set, and as far as I can tell, there's no kind of scientific basis for any of them. No experimentation, no theory, no physical basis for any of them. Apparently they're all just made up by someone. So, yeah, random. They're often really inaccurate. They tell you to do things which you wouldn't otherwise do. The picture on the left has the CIBSE recommended light level for a restaurant of 200 lux. Nice. The one on the right is the legendary Gordon's Wine Bar down at the Embankment. If you've not been to Gordon's Wine Bar, you should take your partner there immediately. It's the nicest place you can go in London for a little romantic drink. If you do that and you take your light meter out in the middle of the wine bar, which I have to say I have done, you end up with about 5 lux on the floor there, which is well below CIBSE guidelines, but it's much nicer. I think most people here would prefer the one on the right to the one on the left. You can conform to all guidelines and still end up with bad lighting. I don't know who did this project. I hope they're not here. If it's one of you, I'm sorry. 300 lux on the desks, nice lit walls, ceilings are okay. Not a good lighting design. This is a project we got involved in, and they asked us to redo it. And the next slide is what we changed it into, which is much nicer. Exactly the same place, pretty much the same viewpoint, I think. If you look at it, you can see the columns are the same. So, and the same kind of light levels, but it's not the light levels that make the lighting design. It's the design, the whole integration with the architecture, the approach, the color temperature, everything else. They also almost always fail to mention what's actually important about lighting. One of the first things we do as a company when we get involved in lighting is work out what color temperature we're going to have. I've yet to see a guideline specify color temperature. We do a lot of hospitality work, so we tend to end up down the kind of 2,300. This looks much nicer on my screen than it does up here. Down the kind of really warm end of the color temperature sensor, scale, 2,300, 2,005. Guidelines don't ever tell you what to use or specify it. It's just left to someone. What I think is one of the most important things. I think it's more important than the light level. Equally, they don't tell you how much accenting you need and what the kind of display illuminance ratio is. This picture on the left, again, same shot, change of wide beam lamps to narrow beam, really focusing on the urns, bringing out a lot of attention, massive increase in accenting, massive decrease in uniformity. Guidelines do not mention this. They don't say, none of which we ever have. If you look at the whole Middle East, they all have their own guidelines on lighting, and none of them have ever specified that you need a kind of really high display illuminances. Also, the other thing is that the picture on the right, in the middle of the floor, it's really quite dark if you look at it. But we don't care because it looks really nice. There's also a lot of stuff with lighting that has been proven scientifically to work. Blue light makes you alert and awake, which we should all know by now because we all studied circadian rhythms and everything, but other scientifically proven things, that red lighting makes you more aggressive. There's references down at the bottom if you're interested. Yellow lighting makes you full of the joys of spring and happy. I think it's got something to do with daffodils, but I'm not sure. And this, again, these are all proven elements, much more proven and much more shown to be true than the light levels, which all the guidelines insist on you having. But they are never kind of mentioned in any of the CIBSE books or brand standards or any other documentation that I've ever seen. There's a lot more than this. I just dug out a few to show. So what do the guidelines actually achieve? Firstly, they encourage really lazy designing. They encourage you to think that all you need to do is give you 300 lux and you're done. They create a race to the bottom. You need to do the bare minimum to comply. We've had a lot of projects where the client just wants, I just want the bare minimum to comply with the kind of CIBSE guidelines or with kind of brand standards. I want 300 lux uniformly across the floor. It kind of removes all the interesting bits. If you're doing a bar or something, you might put lighting in the shelves, you might put tunable white, you might put uplights in the floor. They all get cut in favor of just a uniform lighting level that meets the kind of minimum guidelines. So they don't help, they don't achieve anything. Sometimes it causes over-illumination, makes it too bright. Is it dark in the middle? Stick a downlight there, and kind of removing any kind of atmosphere or niceness as you go. And it encourages anyone with a copy of Dialux to think they can actually be a lighting designer. This is like saying that anyone with AutoCAD can be an architect. It's not the same. So, regulations and guidelines, they are prone to change, they are arbitrary, they lack in any kind of evidence, they're often inaccurate, they're often irrelevant, and they omit all the important things of what actually makes a good lighting design. So it's time to get rid of them all. Time to get rid of them all. That's my next slide. Okay, a bit of an artistic revolution slide here. This is the Déjeuner sur l'herbe, and I apologize for my French accent. It was by Manet, exhibited at the Salon des Refusés. In 1863 in Paris, art was very traditional and very conservative, and you had to paint very finely, nice watercolors and still lifes and so on. Still very much the kind of Italian Renaissance style, the kind of Michelangelo school of art. And all the Impressionists had real trouble getting all their work exhibited because nobody wanted to. The Paris Academy of Fine Art just kept refusing them and saying, no, we're not showing your stuff, it's not art, we don't know what it is. So one year, 1863, they just said, well, enough of this. Everyone who's been refused to be exhibited at the Academy of Art, they got together and they had their own exhibition at the, which was called the Salon des Refusés, the Room of Refused Exhibits. And in doing so, they kick-started an entire revolution in conceptual art, which was the Impressionists and everything that came afterwards, the kind of Pointillists, everything we now know as kind of conceptual art started here and then. And it was basically because they refused to accept the guidelines and the regulations that the Academy of Fine Arts was trying to impose. So, in the same way, we could just ignore them all. We could just ignore all the guidelines because they're made up, they're arbitrary, we don't really like them. We can read them, we can learn them, we can understand where they come from, and then we can discard them and throw them away. Favorite quote of the day, Wittgenstein, famous philosopher, if you've ever done philosophy. He wrote a book about how language was meaningless, and someone asked him how it could possibly be that language is meaningless. How can you understand his book if his book is meaningless? And he said, well, it's like a ladder. You climb up. After you've climbed up it, you throw it away. Same with guidelines. They're useful to read and learn. You can kind of know what they're about, and then you can ignore them happily. And if you do ignore them happily, you end up with some really nice lighting design. This is the stairs at Andaz Hotel in Delhi, and its main kind of ballroom entrance. It's got a very low light level on the floor, well below CIBSE guidelines. A bit like these stairs here, actually, because I'm slightly tedious, measured the light level on those stairs. There was an 11 lux. So, just before I came in. So once we're free of the restraints of having to do what all these people tell us, we can just end up with really nice lighting. This is the specialty restaurant, the Park Hyatt St. Kitts in the Caribbean. So again, there are large kind of dark areas on the floor. The table's lit quite well, but there are large chunks of darkness, well below any kind of uniformity regulations or lighting guideline regulations. This is also at St Kitts. This is one of the pools they have. They've got quite a lot of pools. This is lit not with a standard 500 lux uniformly from massive floodlights, but with a fiber optic floor. There's a little star effect floor in there. It's really nice. It's like swimming among the stars. It's really nice. I shouldn't have gone in really because it wasn't open when I was there, but I did because it's nice. But yeah, lit well below all kind of standards and guidelines. Or this place, a complete willing disregard for any kind of uniformity criteria that people might want to imply. But it transforms what could have been a very tedious corridor-style space into quite a nice selection of little pools of light. Gives it a little bit of interest. This is the pre-function area, a Marriott project we did recently. And it just lifts it slightly. It's also, I'd like to point out, quite a lot cheaper because you need quite a lot less downlights if you're not trying to fill the whole space with uniform lighting. You're just trying to create an interesting mood rather than a 300 lux solution. And I think that's it, really. I think I just wanted to say light is art. Go create and don't worry about what people tell you to do.